welcome to the parish of Chandler's Ford and the 4 p.m. service. You join us for the final in our Lent series as we meet with Steve and Ali Hill. We started off with Jason and Paula sharing their story of battling with cancer and also their child being really ill. And then Jack and Vicky boldly shared their story of the pain of childlessness and infertility and how they managed to journey through that and found God in that. Still remember the fingernail faith. And then the week after we had lovely Ruth and Stuart shared their story of just continuing to keep going through ongoing challenges with health and just the general life situation. Then we had Mothering Sunday, and then last week Ruth and I shared our story of loss following the death of our son. And today we finish off our series with something maybe a little less dramatic. You can breathe a sigh of relief, perhaps. But let's welcome Ali and Steve up. Come and grab a seat. And it kind of fits in really well with today's reading, and it being what Jane just read to us about Jesus entering the temple, because we have made church. Church is full of imperfect people. Each of us looking for our own thing to be exactly as we would like it. We've made church something that wasn't meant to be, probably. And in that, a lot of pain and hurt can be caused when relationships go wrong, when things don't seem to go right. And so today, Ali and Steve are going to be sharing a little bit of their story around that, following their years of experience of church life.
Do you want to stand?
Let's make sure it's nice and low so we can still see Steve's wonderful face in the video.
Yeah, not my stomach hurts. I'm breathing, I can't breathe in that long.
If Steve passes out, we know why. Steve and Ali, why don't you just introduce who you are for those of us who don't know you?
Mic?
Yes, have a microphone.
You have a microphone.
You can start.
Okay. Well, I'm Steve, and I'm married to Ali. That's why it started with all the other ones, so I thought that's a kind of good way to start.
Yeah.
Oh, is that it?
Oh, okay. I was challenged by some of the things some of the other people said. I could normally introduce myself as an engineer, but actually probably the most important thing is being a Christian and follower of Jesus first. And then, my nature is probably more engineering bent, so you can probably criticise me how you want on that one, but that's...
And I'm Ali, and I'm also a Christian. And,
very pleased, as you were just about to tell us what you do.
And I'm not an engineer, praise the Lord. I'm really blessed and privileged to work for this church. So I'm training to be a vicar, and I'm in my second year of 3, and I work here as part of the staff team, heading up discipleship.
So you guys have had an interesting experience going through life as Christians in the church. You've both grown up as children of church leaders. You've also been in a variety of different styles of church and denominations, from Vineyard and other types of expression, as well as the Church of England. I wonder if perhaps you could start off though by just explaining a little bit about your experience of growing up in the church.
Well, I guess as preachers' kids, that comes with a lot of interesting connotations. I guess it wasn't easy being a preacher's kid or being known at school as being a preacher's kid. I came with expectations and other things. And also, I guess there's some highs and lows. I mean, one of the nice things, my dad always used to swap churches in the States kind of every other summer. So we used to have kind of 2 or 3 months in the States on holiday, which was great. Although it meant that we could see the other side of life there. I remember Dad had one church in California, really big church. He took over there, and he walked right into the middle of a dispute between the elders. And one set of elders had left the church buildings in a legal will to the other half of the church elders after the rapture. And it sounds funny on paper, but actually the underlying point was there was a real dispute going on within this church. It was just not happy. And then I guess we saw it again when we moved down. My father was kind of on a missionary type thing in the East End of London. We were in a congregational church and mixed with a Methodist church. And then he moved down to a church in Cheltenham and took that over. And he walked right into a hornet's nest with a kind of power struggle on the elders there. And after a couple of years, or probably less than that, he actually had to move on. It just wasn't the right place for him, and they ended up setting. The good thing, I guess, out of that is that they ended up setting another church up in Cheltenham, on the other side of town, and that grew really well. But seeing that side of things from how my parents were working within the church, it meant that we never wanted to go into the church. We never wanted to go into leadership at all.
So I'm also a preacher's kid. So my dad was an Anglican vicar, and if he was starting ministry now, he'd be described as a pioneer minister. So what his amazing gifting was, is to go into very traditional churches and just bring the power of the Holy Spirit and begin to change things from within. But obviously, as we all know, some churches, a lot of churches, all of us, struggle with change. And I remember one particular church that we moved to that ended up being the main church that we were in for most of my childhood. In those early days, Dad had a real battle on his hands with some very, very influential and very powerful people within the congregation who did not want to let go of the power of what they had, because it's all about their little empires. And I can remember, as quite a young child, seeing yet another note drop through the door, and they would be anonymous, very nasty, poison pen letters, really, to Dad, and he'd have horrible phone calls, and people would stand up and disrupt meetings because they just didn't want to see change. And he persevered, and amazingly, God turned, every time he did that in every single church, the things turned around, and the fruit was amazing. But my goodness, taking a congregation through those changes was incredibly painful. And a bit like Steve, as I grew up, I was incredibly excited about what I saw God doing. We both became Christians when we were very little, but we saw the pain of the things that happened behind closed doors. And it really impacted, I can only really speak for myself, but it impacted me hugely. And the one thing I told my parents I would never do is I would never marry a vicar. And I would never go into church leadership, because I'd seen the flip side of the good things that church could be.
Thank you. So how did you guys keep going in faith? What kind of kept you on the path following Jesus?
Well, I guess I went to university, and that was kind of interesting. You kind of find yourself and you wander off and kind of forget God for a little bit. But then I always knew that God wasn't about. I had a personal relationship that Sunday school had worked, but it was very much a head knowledge. I could see. I actually went back and did an Alpha course, thinking I can see the way my parents are living by faith, and that's really working. But I don't actually know God personally. So I went back and did an Alpha course type thing, and thought, yeah, actually Sunday school did work. I did know it all, but actually I didn't know God. So I had to kind of give up that and actually accept God back into my life at that point. But again, I sort of want to be a church leader. That was definitely that. So.
Yeah, and I spectacularly went off the rails when I was at university, because it was the first time in my life I'd ever been anywhere that people didn't know who I was, and being a vicar's daughter is quite a hard thing to be, particularly in a small town, which is where we grew up. And I went completely off the rails when I was at university, and I was very angry with what I saw was a real hypocrisy of Christians that I knew, both in my home church and in my Christian union when I went to university. It all felt like you had to behave in a certain way in order to fit in. And I know you can't believe this looking at me now, but I was very, very rebellious. I mean, I was a wild child, and I didn't fit into any of those images or molds, and I hugely struggled with feeling that God wanted me because I thought I had to be something that I wasn't. And I saw in other people at that time a huge hypocrisy in the things that they said they believed in, and then the way that they treated other people. And that drove me away from God, because I got myself very muddled thinking that that was all about God, whereas actually it's just about people, isn't it? And it took me quite a long time to work out that actually the two are different. And I did, and I came back to God.
Okay. So today's passage that we have read is all about the fact Jesus is saying they'd made church something it wasn't meant to be. And with your experience, with all that you guys have gone through, what are your reflections on this? Where do you think possibly we've started to get church wrong, possibly even today?
I'm not sure I've got an answer to that one. I don't know, I think church is kind of full of people, and people are always going to be difficult, and you're always going to get that kind of friction in churches. And I guess it's seeing that bigger picture, seeing what God is really doing. I mean, when we moved down here about 10 years ago, we actually did try out the local churches, and we, having come from a vineyard church, it was a big culture shock going to the local churches here, and we ran away. We ran away to Christ Church in Winchester. We were there for a while, and thought, again, we're not going to actually kind of get into church leadership or anything like that. And gradually, I think Ali got poached onto being church warden at Christ Church, and gradually we were kind of sucked back into it and thinking, oh no. And then we were asked, actually, can we come along and do a kind of church plant within Chandler's Ford? And we really had to sit back and think, do we want to do this? Is this the right thing to do? Are we going to get burnt out? Are we going to get... And we really had to just take a step back and say, actually, God, we trust you. We trust what you're going to do. And we'll go along with it. And we were looking for exit strategies all the way along there, but we did go along with it.
Yeah, so, we guess we know most of you since we've been here in starting off the 4 p.m. service 5 years ago now, but it was a massive choice for us. We really, really had to stop and say, are we prepared to do this? Because we knew, in a sense, what we were letting ourselves in for. We knew that we were putting ourselves on the front line. And, it has been a journey of amazingness. It's just been an incredible journey. But there has been pain along the way, and we've had to learn to be more resilient and to deal with those things, and actually just to trust God in that process, that this is what God's called us to, and He's faithful. And so that's what we've just gone with. And actually God has been incredibly generous as we've done that, as we've stepped out in faith. We've seen His purposes, unfold. And so, and the other thing we just wanted to say is that things that we've seen going wrong in the church, and you know all of this stuff because you've all been around churches, I guess, for a while. But it's been really interesting setting up a new church, because we've seen what we call the church hoppers, who literally go from church to church and who never settle in one place but just keep moving on. And we've had our number of those that have come through and then moved on. And we try to say to people who've joined us here as a congregation, if you come and you believe this is where God's called you to be, then that's wonderful. But if you're somewhere else, leave well first. Leave well first. Honour them. Honour them in the way that you leave. Because treat people as the way that you would want to be treated. So we've tried to say that to people. And when we've lost people, it's really painful. It's really painful because you invest in people and you care and love them. And sometimes this isn't the place where they're meant to be. And you have to hold things really lightly. And that's the cost of leadership. And it's the cost of belonging to a family. It's the cost of being church together. So I think that's really all I want to say about those things that we've seen happening since we've been in ministry.
Okay. So with all that in mind, with all your story, with all that's gone on in your lives, all that you've seen in church, you guys have ended up in a position of leadership in the church. Interestingly. So how do you think, as leaders of the church, do you think we should be dealing with these things? How do you think we as a church move forward? There may be people here today that are feeling a bit dissatisfied, who are feeling frustrated, who are hurting. How, as God's church, ought we to respond?
Yeah, I guess from our point of view, I think it's seeing the bigger picture, because it is very easy to be hurt by other people and to say, oh, that's the way we've always done it, or that's the way things are done. And I guess it's standing back and taking that bigger picture, holding things a little bit lightly, seeing what God is actually doing in people's lives, in those around us, and actually what He's doing in our lives. Because actually, He's got a plan for all of us. He's got a plan, for everybody, and it is the best plan. It's not just one to come along on a Sunday and put that in a nice little compartment and say, this is where, that's God, and I'll go and do my life elsewhere. Actually, you've got to actually put God first, and then by doing that, you end up with a much better life, and actually trusting God and taking risks and stepping out and being obedient to what He's calling you to do.
And I think, again, social media, I don't know about you, but I sort of sign up to these posts on social media, and then you just see an awful lot of stuff about people who are just incredibly dissatisfied with church. And I see all the time people on social media particularly posting stuff about, well, I'm a Christian, but I don't like the church. I don't go to church. And actually, I know I'm training, obviously, to be a vicar, so I probably would say this, but actually I really, really passionately believe that if we love Jesus, we are called to be in the church. The two are indistinguishable, because we are the body of Christ. This is it. We are family together. And I think the analogy of family is a really helpful one. We all have bits of our family that we love, and we all have bits of our family that we really don't love. We have to learn to get along together. And there is a sense that we can choose to run away, a bit like Stephen and I did, trying to find a church that was perfect. We can run away from difficult things that happen and choose to be on our own in isolation, but actually that is not the way that Jesus ever wanted us to live our lives as followers of Christ. We were just never designed to do that. And there is a challenge for us all that just as we don't always love our family, we have to choose to live with them. And we have to choose to work through ways of talking and sharing and being honest and being vulnerable and all of those things, so that we can learn to rub along together better. And there are always going to be people in our family who we like hanging out with and spending time with because they're easy, but we are called to be the body of Christ together. And there's a massive, massive challenge in that for us right here, right now. This is our family. We are family. We are the family of God right here, right now, in this place. And the one thing, if you're on social media, the one thing that non-Christians see more than anything else is if they notice when Christians argue with each other and they battle out against theological debates about this, that and the other. And I'm not saying those things aren't important, but what the residue is that non-Christians look at what we are and say, we don't want to be a part of that. And if we cannot somehow show unity and love and actually working through those things in God's strength, not our own, then we might as well just pack up and go home. Because we cannot work in isolation, we cannot be Christians on our own. And we all know that because we're all here. But actually our job, I believe, is to model that to other people really well. And be really honest about those things when those things are really hard. And that's why belonging in a small group is really important, because you can do all of that in your small group, you can talk those things through, or with a close friend. But you do need to work those things through. They're so important to do that, because that way God gets the glory, and we're not left on our own fighting those battles on our own. Does that make sense?
Thank you. So finally, as we wrap up, what advice would you give us as God's people here, as His church here today?
Advice. I don't know, I think actually Jesus summed it up quite well, because He said, love God and love each other. And actually that actually is, we can see it in the Lord's Prayer and all that, But actually when it comes down to living it out in a church, in a family, actually, yeah, you love God first, you put God first, you work out what He wants you to do, but actually you hold it lightly, you love other people around you, and seek what is kind of good, best for them, but just see the bigger picture, see what God is doing. We're amazed at what God's doing in our parish here, within Chandler's Ford, within the lives of those people we see around us, and just learning to love. And I think I would also add there to try and seek what God is also doing within your life, changing within your own life, but be willing to take risks and be obedient when you hear Him calling you to do something that you don't want to do.
Yeah, and just all of that, and just the other thing I would say is, and I'm speaking to myself just as much as to anyone else, is to keep really short counts with people. I was really struck this morning. I was helping lead the service this morning at St Boniface, and we always have Holy Communion in the morning service, and so there's always that bit with the peace, the peace of the Lord Jesus Christ. And we share the peace together. And the peace is all about keeping short accounts with each other. It's not really about giving somebody a nice handshake and saying peace of the Lord. I mean, it is that, but what that's meant to be is it's meant to be an opportunity where you keep really short accounts with people. And when you're harbouring stuff, or where you're struggling a bit, it's to make yourself go up to the person that you really, really don't want to spend any time with and give them a hug and say, we love you, God loves you. It's just about building bridges with people. And so keep short accounts with people, that's what I would say for myself as well as everyone else.
So we'll all be watching you next time you share Fantastic. Thank you so much, both of you, for sharing. And can we give a big thank you to